Hello and welcome back to Pass the Torch, Legacies in Jewelry. My name is Naja de Van Diest and I am joined today by the lovely Linda Kozloff-Turner. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. It's wonderful.
And Linda and I met a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so, and I got to learn about her wonderful book that she wrote, 100 Women in Jewelry, which is why we are here today and why she's on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and it is a fascinating journey and a wonderful story.
Can you tell me a little bit about how it even came to be and what is this book?
The book came to be through my own personal experiences, and my experiences as a jewelry designer. I was the only woman bench jeweler on Pearl Street in the 1970s, and I've certainly had quite an education since then. And I woke up one day and thought to myself, I wonder if I'm the only woman that's going through what I'm experiencing as a woman in the industry. And the short answer is no.
So, talk to me a little bit about what people can expect when they open your book for the first time.
I want to always come from a positive point of view. We're problem solvers. This is not about what we can't have or what hasn't been done. This is about what we can do and what we have available to us to be able to move further and be equals in an industry that once upon a time was not necessarily an equal platform.
How did you get started in jewelry?
I loved jewelry from the beginning of my life in New England and Massachusetts. On a rainy day, I would go through drawers in a cedar chest filled with these beautiful costume pieces of jewelry. And I was already looking at them in a critical manner, looking at a piece going, oh, this isn't made very well, or I really love this one, or the sparkles on this are so special. I was 16 years old and I was working in an art store on Main Street in Northampton, Massachusetts. And I happened to be the person who helped everybody at the bead counter. We had a lovely area for beads, one of the nicest in all of New England. I was very lucky to work there. And I said to a woman, I said, I'd really like, she said, you're really good at this. I said, I'd love to learn more. And ironically, there was a woman inside and, these were all old wood floors and it smelled like New England on a rainy day. And she comes swooping around. Her name was Alex. And she said, I'm a jewelry designer and I need help. Would you like to be my apprentice?
That's great. I would love if someone did that to me.
It was pretty amazing.
Come poach me. Come tell me you're going to educate me.
As it turned out, she was a cloisonné artist for the Boston Museum of Fine Art. And my first experience as an apprentice was to work with her. And she taught me all the principles of cloisonné and how to build everything while I helped her with the kiln and some of the building practices. But she taught me how to polish a cast line.
Oh, cool. Can you describe what your job entailed working for her and what you learned in those years?
Oh, it was wonderful. She had one of these old, wonderful homes up by Green Street in Northampton over by Smith College. And we would just work in that studio together. It was just divine. She was so patient with me and she wanted me to help her because the more I knew, the better I could help her. Now, cloisonné is a very difficult process to start dipping your toe into that pool. And she would hand make all these beautiful forms and then fill them with the thin bezel stripping that you use to separate out the colors in cloisonné and mix all of the enamels, and you'd bring them over to the little kiln and each one would bake. But I was responsible for finishing all those pieces, and she taught me a lot about finishing as a cast line polisher. It was a magical experience, and I wish I could be still in touch with her. I don't know where she is today.
Oh, well, maybe hopefully she'll hear this episode and then get in touch with you.
That would be great.
Oh, that's sweet. So where did you go after that? Because you went from Massachusetts to Colorado. What brought you out here?
People always ask me, what brought you out to Colorado? And I tell them this, a 1939 Pontiac flathead coupe that I helped rebuild. I actually come from a long line of car restorers, and everybody in my life was trying to find a little fidgety knob or a tiny little piece or a burled wood knob for a shift. I came from a long line of very high-end car restorers, and that 39 Pontiac Flathead Coupe brought us out here to Colorado. I had a boyfriend from high school, and he had come out to Colorado in 74, and he wanted to come back out, and he waited for me till I graduated high school. I actually started Greenfield Community College, and we came out to Colorado together, and we went back to New England once or twice, but basically made our home here.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's awesome.
So, this book that everyone's buzzing about, I've seen it. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Thank
It's
you.
just the most luxurious, beautifully bound book. You put so much effort into editing and production of this book. It's quite literally like the ultimate. I mean, a coffee table book is just an insult. It's just like a true treasure.
I've been told that it's one of the finest books that's ever been made. I have a cute story. You'll love this. So GIA bought 2 copies, one for their rare prints room and one for the students to take out, which was an honor beyond belief. And then they had me come and speak at GIA. I am a graduate gemologist. And I had to laugh because I said to the curator of the library, Diana Parsons, I said, I'm so sorry. The book is, it's big. It's 10 pounds. And she said, come here. She walks me over to the library and into the rare prints room where it is a climate controlled environment. My book is in a forever place, which is beyond an honor. So she has me look through the glass with all the netting because this is a very not approachable place. You're not to go in that part of the library. And there's this huge book. It's maybe two feet wide and maybe 12 inches high, and it has drawers in it. And she said, your book isn't that big. It's one of the rarest geology books in the world. My book is in there with it.
Oh, that's cool.
No kidding.
What inspired you to start this book? And so, just as a little bit of a background, she put together a collective of 100 women who have worked in jewelry. And I think you said it was the largest collection of documented female labor ever?
Ever.
Wow.
Wow. I couldn't have imagined that when I started, but my propensity for success, and I tell everybody this, is I can outwork anybody. So I actually started a trend in the entire jewelry industry. Most of the jewelry industry in the older days of Instagram and Facebook were just primarily about the jewelry pieces. But I wanted to go further than that. I wanted to know more about the women in particular, but the people that made those pieces, because I knew that that piece of jewelry was a result of their life and their experience. And in the end, in their culture as well. So I made it a global representation of 100 women across the world telling me what it was like for them to be in the jewelry industry. I did want to just tell you that I furthered my career. So I have a Bachelor of Arts in Industrial Product Design with an emphasis in jewelry from the Metropolitan State University. I have a Master's of Fine Arts from CU Boulder. I taught photography at CU for a few years while I was in graduate school. I am a graduate gemologist, and I am a National Association of Jewelry Appraisers appraiser. So I took it as far as I could.
Yeah. What were some of the main things that you discovered in your conversations with these jewelers?
The number one thing that I discovered that was deeply personal, incredibly emotional, and unbelievably powerful was that I was not alone, that other women were experiencing very much the same type of thing that I was. And I felt that was profound because it was a lonely place to be the only bench woman in Boulder in the 70s. I didn't really have anyone to talk to, and I didn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. I was usually and always truly in a subservient position, and I felt that I wanted more from that experience. I wanted to know more about what it was like. And I just couldn't believe the stories I heard. Little could have prepared me for what I was about to hear. Little. It was absolutely revolutionary. And yes, this is the largest women's collective of interviews in the world on women in the jewelry industry, women in any industry, and anybody working during COVID.
And congratulations are in order. The
Thank you.
Library of Congress just added
Yes.
your book to their library, to their permanent collection.
Yes, I haven't gotten my number yet, but this is a great little story that I think you'll appreciate because this is what it takes to really make it. I can't delegate anything to anybody. I have a wonderful team of people, but if you want something, you really have to just go and get it yourself. And so I had a girlfriend. They were all very supportive of me. I still have that girlfriend. Thank you very much. But she was like, you're in all these libraries all over the world. Maybe you should be in the Library of Congress. And I thought, hmm, maybe I should. So I came back to my studio one morning. It was maybe another rainy day here in Boulder, Colorado. And I looked up the Library of Congress, like how would you begin or where would you go or how did that even possibly happen? And I saw a phone number on the website for the Library of Congress for acquisitions. And I thought, well, I guess I'll just call it. So I practiced because I am a thespian also. And I practiced and practiced. I said to myself, hi, I'm Linda Kozloff-Turner, and I've written a book. I figured I'd be leaving a message, so I wanted that message to be perfect. I dial the phone number, and the person on the other end says, hello. And I literally stuttered. I was like, hi, well, I wrote a book. And he's like, that's lovely. What's it about? And I said, I interviewed 100 women across the world and asked them what their lives were like in the world of the jewelry industry. And he said, that's actually fascinating. And I said, yeah, it was really incredible. And he and I started this conversation. And he said, I'll get back to you. I'll see what I can do. And a few weeks later, now it's taken a couple years. You don't just hop on the bandwagon to the Library of Congress. I'm pretty sure those are some busy folks. And he got back to me and he said, I'll let you know as soon as we have you cataloged in. And you could have dropped me over with a feather. And I've just recently contacted him and he said, we're still in the process. You'll be getting your Library of Congress number. But there are people in the world that's only a dream. And I made it happen. I made it happen for all those women who put forth so much to help me and help everybody else understand better what they are able to do in this industry. It's profound. I did it for them.
I don't think there's anything more powerful than a story.
And this one's got it.
I know that every woman that you have documented has their own moment in your book and has their own story, but do you mind just giving me a few of your highlights? I know they're all amazing, but are there any that stand out to you that you would like to share here?
Well, yes, there are several, but they're not about jewelry. And I think that's what took me aback probably the most because I thought I would be talking about jewelry and the process of jewelry and how these women became jewelers. But the truth is, I ended up talking to women about losing their children and being captured in Bosnia and being refugees and what it took to become a jewelry designer. It is off the charts. This thing is incredible. I talk about it in the third person as if it's its own entity, because in truth it is. It took over. It took over my life, and it taught me everything that I can say that I am today. But I think the first one was an interview with an artist, and I'm not going to impart who the artist is. I think it's more important that if people love it and they want to read the book, that's where it's really at. But she was a huge artist for Bergdorf's and Barney's in the 80s when they would swing in at 5 o'clock on a Saturday night and buy $500,000 worth of things. Those were the days. And she was an extremely popular artist. And she did a lot of work with her son. And one of the things that they were doing was taking really unusual quotes from like Joan Crawford movies and things like that and putting them on bracelets. And her story is it's funny and then it's not so funny. And I come into every interview very open. I'm like the clerk scribe. I don't come in with an overview or a cast of what it is that I'm going to hear. I let that person tell their story because I think the number one thing that I've noticed in all of the women in all of the world is there's a great propensity for overstepping and overspeaking. I decided I wasn't going to be that person. I wasn't going to tell them what it was that we were going to talk about. And so we are going on about what it was like for her and working with her son. And then she looks me straight in the eye and says, "Now, here's the sad part." And I stopped. I prepared myself. I braced myself. I couldn't imagine what she could be saying. And her son, whom she'd been working with, went to Costa Rica with a friend, and they both OD'd. And her life was never the same after that. And those bracelets and the things that they made together became priceless beyond reason. And she knew, she said after 6 months, she said, I couldn't get out of bed. But then she said, I know my son would want me to keep working. And those are the stories I heard. They're incredibly powerful and incredibly deep, and obviously had nothing to do with jewelry. Another woman taught me what it was the difference between an immigrant and a refugee. Her family was thrown out of Afghanistan. She's currently a human rights activist and a lawyer. And her grandma brought one piece of jewelry back, and it was everything to them. That piece of jewelry was their history, was their culture, was their family's wealth, their lineage. And they had several little diamonds in it, and they took all the little diamonds out and made something for every girl in the family. And she started her line based on that premise and with the understanding that this was a continuation of her familial history, which had been abruptly disrupted and terminated. They went from dignitaries in Afghanistan to cab drivers in Georgia, nobody knowing who they were. And she taught me what the power of jewelry was and what it was like to have a piece of her grandmother's jewelry under those conditions. It was just unbelievable. Another woman was actually on a rescue mission, food in Bosnia during the war, and was captured and was held for 3 months. And they didn't kill her. That was the start. But when she came back, I wanted to know, how do you become a jewelry designer after being a hostage? And her story will just blow your mind. You just can't even imagine how that transpired. So every woman had this amazing story and told me the deepest of the deep of their most inner, most private thoughts and processes, because nobody asks us how we really feel. We're only told. And in this case, I gave every woman the opportunity to speak about her own experience in the manner in which she experienced it.
I just want to take a moment to thank them if they're around the world listening. Thank them for sharing. And thank you, Linda, for seeing the value in the storytelling where you presented it to the world. You gave your effort, your energy to lift up others.
I have to tell you, I'm a grants writer and I've received many. And I just got to the point where I was sick of talking about myself. It felt great to lift somebody else up. It felt fabulous. It was the right thing to do. And they were so proud to have somebody take that time and really listen to what they had to say. It was a great moment of pride for me and for them.
Where can people find you? Where can people find this book?
You can buy my book at www.womenofjewelry.com, and you can buy it right off the shelf. We designed it from ground zero, if you will, to what it is today. I selected the paper. I edited 170,000 words. Beautiful red linen cover with foil stamping. I knew I couldn't let everybody down and just make this mediocre presentation. I'm also a current jewelry designer. I own Christine Marguerite Designs in Boulder. I have a studio overlooking the Flatirons. I've been making jewelry since those days in Boulder 50 years ago. And I'm known for quality, for artistic beauty, and I knew I had to bring that to the book. And I had an incredible team. I'd like to honor them right now. Frank Stankus is Cindy Edelstein's husband. He contacted me and he helped me edit the book. It was just an absolute incredible experience. Peggy Sands from Indigo Disegno, she picked up on the book and she is the book designer of the most ultimate magnitude. My business partner, Tom Turner, spent many a night with me, lots of tears, lots of things happening, feeling like I couldn't make it, feeling like I couldn't keep going. And he would bring me another cup of coffee and say, let's go over that line again. Michelle Steele, who kept my business admin together. I had a team of people, so I feel good about it, but I honestly couldn't have done it without all of the people and all of the women. Michelle Orman from Couture, Iris van de Vecken from the watch and jewelry exhibition. I've got people in there, a tribute to Cindy Edelstein. And I did want to make mention that a portion of the book sales goes to Women's Jewelry Association. I have provided them a grant. The Gemological Institute of America, I have provided them a grant. And the Fashion Institute of Technology. These are all places that help to facilitate all of these, many of these women in their careers and keep them going when times got tough.
I am one of the people who apply to those grants.
Which one?
Well, just all the WJA grants.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
hoping to get a few of them.
Right. They're hard. Grants are hard. When I say I'm a grants writer and I received them, it's like, oh, that's really difficult. But I always wanted to give back. For me, to just harbor things or hoard things and keep all that inside in this competitive business world doesn't really do anybody any good. But when you share that wealth of information and help and inspiration, and you do lift up somebody else, I think that that's the most beautiful feeling in the world. And that is worth way more than money ever will be valued at.
Agreed. Were there any moments while writing this book that you just had to like belly laugh, tears of joy, or just chuckling moments?
But there were a couple. I'm going to be giving a lecture for the National Association for Jewelers Appraisers, and the theme of that is what it took to write this book. And there were some times and some things that you just couldn't make any of it up. I think the first one that comes to mind is I went to Paris to meet an artist. whom I'd been in dialogue with for months, if not a couple of years. I got the photographer I was working with at the time and myself over there to Paris, and she was on holiday. She stood me up. I was in Paris with the photographer,
Oh no.
and I almost just I had to laugh. I mean, I just had to laugh. Let me tell you how that rolled. So I have a little saying that I tell myself, you never know when you're having good luck. So I am in her studio. Her family was still running it, but she was gone. And she might be the grandmother of them all, quite honestly. But anyway, I asked her staff, I said, well, I'm here. If you were me, who would you interview? And they said, oh, there's a gal down the street. And they told me who she was. Now, what I used to do was I would bring 3 bars of chocolate to everybody. And so I brought her 3 bars of chocolate, and I went up these stairs. We knocked on this old 1700s door, and it creaks open, and we go into the courtyard, and we go up the stairs, and she's up there. And she couldn't have time to speak with me then. But years later, when we did have time to talk, I said, I'm the lady that brought you the chocolate. And she just howled in laughter. She couldn't believe it. It was so great.
Little things for people to remember you by.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, and I was just, thinking about how gorgeous this book is and how I don't have a showroom yet. I would love to have one day. I don't have a showroom, but how perfect this book is for so many jewelry showrooms around the world.
It's in the Bulgari showroom.
Oh, very cool. I didn't know that.
I interviewed Lucia Silvestri, the lead designer of Bulgari, and Bulgari was fabulous. They gave me everything. They were just amazing. I love you guys. You're just the best ever. And Lucia, you're my love. So she's just incredible.
Oh, that's awesome. You also got to interview some royalty, right?
Uh-huh. Yes, I did. I interviewed the Saudi Arabian Princess Noor Al Fasel of Nun Jewels. And I also interviewed a wonderful friend of mine, a Princess of Kuwait, Intisar Al Sabah, Princess Intisar Al Sabah. And you'd think, oh, it's got to be easy for them. No, actually, it was 10 times harder. Getting legitimacy, getting into the industry, and becoming and being taken seriously as an artist was a very difficult thing.
Man, it's difficult for everybody.
It's difficult for everybody. Yeah, people think, oh, if you have money or if you have this or you have that. But honestly, the truth is nothing matches up to hard work. And that's a circuitous conversation because that's what I told you in the beginning. I just outworked everybody. As much as I wanted to have it just be magic, it was hard work.
What's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
I think if I had had the information that I got from these women, I would have done things differently. I think it's really important to gather as much information as you can. One of the things that's the hardest for people to understand is it's great if you make fabulous jewelry, but you've got to be an absolutely savvy business person. You've got to know the business part of that strategy because without it, or have somebody who can do that for you, because sitting at the bench does not a business make. You want to be a success. One of my great stories, I have no family money. I did this all on my own, and I raised 4 kids in Boulder. That's no joke. And I went without a lot, quite honestly. So I think probably I wished I had had more information when I first started. I kind of got thrown into it because I was sharing a space with somebody and they ended up moving out, and I just either had to scramble or die, and I decided to survive that experience, but it was tense there for a while. And And I'm so grateful to all our clients. I mean, my clients are so beautiful. They're such good people. And they've kept me alive for 25 years. It's just been unbelievable. So, business relations, get off social media. That doesn't really bring you business. I said, it's not B2B, it's D2D, door to door. You've got to get out there. You've got to meet people. You've got to create community. You've got to have a group of people. People were like, "Oh, you're the only bench jeweler in Boulder, the only woman." And I'd be like, I was so alone. There were days I just didn't even know what to do. I just felt so lonely. I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to bounce information off of. So you want to be a part of a community. And I think one of the hardest things, and this is really an important piece of this business is very competitive. And I understand that. I could never have imagined the community that I created. Many of these women didn't know the other women when I started. And I just couldn't believe. Now they all follow each other and now they all ask each other, hey, you're going to Tucson. Can you get me some turquoise? I mean, I created this community. It was a tangent to my original idea. But instead of being competitive, I think if we can be supportive, my success is your success. Your success is my success. When one person wins, we all win. And so I wished I could have known more about that when I was growing up. I feel like being that lonely was a really tough haul. And I also feel that it felt great to not be jealous. I mean, there could have been times where I could have been like, God, I wished I could have been in that situation, or I wished I had that family member, or I wished I had this or that. But what I heard from everybody is number one, money does not buffer you from the pain of this life. Never forget that. Never forget that. Everybody goes through the same things. And in the end, we are all equal. That's what I wished I could have told my younger self.
Yeah.
I I I felt there were times when I was very lost. Education is the key, inspiration is the key, and community is the key. Really getting people together and understanding that you are not alone in your process. You are not alone in your journey. And if there's somebody there that's willing to help or facilitate one of us, even now, I will mention one of the artists, Elizabeth Gage. She's my darling. I love you, Elizabeth. And she loves me. She sends me par avion letters. Like I can't even believe that. She loves me so much because you know why? She's older and she is the eldest in the 100 and she is still working. She is my great mentor. I just can't believe it, but and her life was a great struggle. And she says to me, "Oh, darling, we're not going to stop until we're under."
Sleep when you're dead.
That was my girlfriend and my saying, "Oh, we'll just sleep when we're dead."
Well, I love that all of these women are now connecting with each other and sharing support. You and I have talked about this before this interview, but I feel like many, many women have gone before me and trailblazed, yourself included, because I have not had the experience that you have had. I have had nothing but support. And I think that that is such a gift, and I'm incredibly aware of that privilege, but I don't think it could have come without the standing on the shoulders of giants.
Well, and then what I encourage you is to pass it on. Because if you've got support, then you've got a little something extra that you can pass on. Take on somebody that might be in need or somebody who might not have all the luxuries that we have. I've always had apprentices, I've always had assistants, I've always taught. There's a couple of schools around here that you have to get some business experience. So I've taken the time to bring people in. But I had something I wanted to say that I think is incredibly relevant right now. Every single woman that I interviewed in business is still alive and working in business today after 10 years. And that says everything.
Wow.
I know.
That's so
That's a
cool.
miracle. Mathematically, that's almost impossible.
Yeah, most small businesses fail by year 7.
Well, and that's what I'm saying about getting the business portion of it together. I think that's the number one thing. You just have to look at business like an art. And but if it's not in the bones, if it's not in the mentality, then go ahead and get somebody who can help you. The business portion of it is going to make or break the individual. Knowing how to price things, knowing what the price of metals are, knowing what your production is. If I were to say one common denominator that almost every single woman dealt with is the problems of manufacturing and getting things made, getting things done economically. I didn't realize that it was so difficult all over the world, but it is. I marveled at that. So business is huge. And if you can't do it yourself, get somebody who can, and then you can stay in business. Sometimes people just need to be the artist. Sometimes art and business match up and mix together. But often artists have trouble wrapping their head around business principles. And even though they might be a fantastic artist, they don't have the skills to keep that business afloat. Rent will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Retail is rough. And things have changed dramatically over many years. And going back to when Bergdorf's and Barney's used to sweep in at 4:59 at the art shows preparing for holiday. So they'd come in and they'd put, like, let's say it's a $500,000 order, and they'd put 250 down, okay? And so the artist would have operational cash to build that line and then get reimbursed when the line hit the stores, Neiman Marcus, Saks, and everything, Barney's and Bergdorf's. Now they're asking the artist to put forward everything.
Right.
They put it in the store. Now they've got no skin in the game, and their people are not necessarily, their retail associates are not necessarily promoting your work. And if it doesn't sell, and if they have invested anything, they ask for their money back and throw you the inventory back. That's the kiss of death.
Yeah. I've seen it.
It happens.
Yep.
And it's so different than what it used to be, because in the times where there was money and artists were supported. But I also have to say that's very United States. If you go to other countries, they're a little more supportive of their artists. I learned that a long time ago. That other countries, for instance, Mexico, they're about all of their artists, everything. They send them places, they educate them. It's a very important part of their culture. Some cultures actually help their artists promote themselves and get out there and become successful. But I don't find that so much in the United States. It's very competitive. It's a much different discussion in a capitalist economy. You're on your own.
What is the one thing that you wish American consumers understood?
Oh, I wish American consumers, first of all, I'm going to ask everybody here. When you go to shop for something, there's a million ways to get things done. But if you knew how hard it was for an artist to stand there and tell you everything about their work, and then just have the person walk away. I've been in retail for many, many years, and I think consumers really need to have more empathy for the artist, for the amount of time that they put into their work, and how often it's so little that they get compensated for that amount of work. And that even though if you don't have intention to buy, I'm not asking all the consumers to buy everything, but on the other hand, having a little compassion for that artist uh, goes a long way. So have compassion for the person that's trying to make that sale, and try to understand where they're coming from when it comes time to the amount of hard work. I think it's really important not to abuse the staff and not to abuse the artist. I think it's equally important that the artist take no insults. I'll say it politely.
Well, it's hard because you have to balance, genuine curiosity in the person wanting to explore whether or not that product, if you will, or art. Sometimes, jewelry is very meta right now of whether it's product or art, depending on who's making it.
True that.
I never want to discourage a consumer from curiosity of inquiring about a sale, but I completely agree with you that very often sales staff can be treated less than human.
Yeah, I'm not big on that. And I've been in the retail industry for many, many years. And number one, I think every store owner should limit that and tell their staff that they need to, if they feel like they're being abused. There's a natural curiosity, and then there's just flat out abuse, where it's almost like a power trip. Oh, I know that you're cornered here, and they see other people coming in, but they're going to hold you there and they have no intention of purchasing. I find it to be and can be very disrespectful. And I encourage everybody to set boundaries and set limits on that and just say, I need to go speak to these other people and not feel like obligated to continue speaking to somebody who's obviously just running them ragged for the sake of it. And that happens a lot. I mean, I've been doing it for many years. I've had people come into my studio and say, "Oh, I want to design a ring for my wife," and I'll start drawing, and they'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, that's it." And, we'll have this great conversation, and we'll be talking, and then they'll turn around and say, "Can I take a picture of that?" And it took me a long time. Oh, I love Swati Danak. She says it's a lot harder to say no than it is to say yes, especially for a woman. And it is okay to say no. Just say no. No, you can't have a picture of that. No, you can't have me design you something and then take it somewhere else and have it done less expensive. I think some of the part of the issue that I see is that a consumer economy doesn't understand the economy, doesn't understand the value of human interaction and human energy that takes to get put into something, especially when we're accustomed to buying things like Tupperware, where it just doesn't, it seems like it's absolutely meaningless and we're just price shopping. Art has to be treated with respect. Artists need to be treated with respect. And I feel that the consumer needs to be more educated about their impact on the soul of that artist,
Hmm.
the soul. Um, I'm very much in the court of the artist. And I've always told my employees, look, if somebody's just running you, don't you be polite. We don't want to be disrespectful, but you don't have to go on any further because there's always a pivotal moment in a sale where you know whether they're going to actually buy something or not. And it's very clear. And at that moment, I give permission to be polite, be loving, but also be able to set boundaries. I've seen a lot in my day. I ran my own retail for 10 years. It's how the book got written. And that is that um, I wanted to hear from other people. Was I the only person that was experiencing this? Was this an anomaly or was this a collective experience? I wanted to understand that. And it was a joy to hear other people say, oh, yeah, people come in here and ask me to design for free. No. And I thought, wow, I'm so glad that they have the strength to set limits and make sure that their investment of their lives and their work gets properly compensated for. That's why I'm unapologetic about my prices and I'm unapologetic about my book. I worked very hard for that. And I look around and I see what people spend money on And I know that I'm worth every penny. And I encourage everyone, men and women, to get the value of what they are worth.
Mm. If you walk into the Boulder Metalsmithing Association and you go to the bathroom, they have a chalkboard there.
Help me!
And written on the chalkboard, I will never forget this. I don't know if it's still there. It might be. I was taking my first metalsmithing class ever, and I had to go to the restroom, and I go in the bathroom, and I see across this chalkboard, metalsmiths are worth their weight in gold.
In my case, that would be significant.
And I just love that. I don't know, it just stuck with me. That and the phrase, "Don't sell gold for the price of silver."
I like that one. I haven't actually heard that one. Yeah, don't do that either. Well, I just think that the mentality of consumers and arts, they feel that it is a lesser entity. And truthfully, what I'm saying in many cultures, it is incredibly invaluable. So I think we just need to be more respectful in a retail environment, and we need to make sure that the artist gets credit, and we need to make sure that people get properly compensated for the work that they put in. That's all we're really asking. Nobody's asking for more than that. And I think that's a fair understanding and assessment of what the value of that person is. And what I think you've pointed out there, and I think is profound, is we are all experiencing that. And so when people have a common experience like that, we want to be able to, you never want to feel powerless. You want to feel like you have something you can say. And I've had to contour my business over the years. It's been difficult, but in order to just self preserve and not feel like I was worth less than anyone. But I will be honest, most of the women in this book and whom I talked to have spoken to me about the pitfalls of being thought of as less valuable and having less value to the product and being asked to do the same work for less money.
That just takes away so much dignity.
It's very heart crushing.
When you're paid for your work, there's something so validating about that. And to lose out on even a fraction of what your peer is receiving is disheartening.
It is disheartening. And it's also, it's kind of a power struggle. I don't think of it as just a mere strategy. I think of it as a power struggle. Making people feel like they're worth less is a strategy for getting something for less money. And I would much rather have something of quality. And jewelry has that propensity. People go out and buy a car, drive it off the lot, and they've lost $10,000 right there, and they owe interest on a loan for that 10,000 that they've just lost. And nobody thinks twice about that. But to stand there and ask an artist who's already negotiated their prices as if it's too much, and then they should get it for less. I've had those experiences, especially in the art world, because people a lot of times in this culture do not see art as being of great value or something negotiable. And it is incredibly disheartening to be the artist in that relationship. It's terrible. I won't tolerate it.
I have a bit of an avant-garde question for you.
Okay, let's have it.
Seeing as you are both sitting at the bench and sitting at the desk to run your business, what is one thing that your bench would say about you, And what is one thing that your desk would say about you, if it
My
could speak?
bench would say to me, I love you, mama. Because I wasn't, the bench wasn't my space. It was a way to make things happen, but I'm much more a designer than I am a bench jeweler. I still have some chops, but it's not my focus. But I organize everything. I love every tool. I'm a tool freak. Every single file, every single thing, every little wire. I'm crazy about it. I love it. And I realize that it is a path to my capabilities. So I take care of my tools. I make sure everything gets put back beautifully. I make sure everything is done just right. So my bench would love me a lot. My desk would love me too because I'm the same way. I take care of my stuff. Oh my gosh, my CAD programs and things like that, everything is of great value to me. I look at this stuff as having great value. So I take really good care of it because without it, I'd be lost. I wouldn't have anything.
I often think about how, particularly in my generation, being a bit self-reflective, in marriage vows. And there's a comedian who did a whole bit on this, but he highlighted how in marriage vows you say for better, for worse, in sickness and in health, and then he says to have and to hold. And I think we're great at having and terrible at holding. And to take care of your things, to take care of your people, to take care of your jewelers is the whole point.
It is. And I'll tell you, that was something that, if another common denominator with all the women is that they took care of everybody. One of the artists shut down all her brick and mortar so that she could pay all her manufacturing.
Oh, that's so
Oh,
hard.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And
that
she's huge. They knew to take care of those who took care of them. The families that cut the stones and the families that manufactured the pieces were not disposable, they were invaluable.
mm.
And that was really heartening. It turned that around for me. I love these women. I absolutely adore them, every one of them. And what's interesting, they all know me and I know them very well. Once you interview somebody like us today, it's like, oh yeah, I know her. And we got very close and people would get back to me all the time. And I just felt like it was such a loving creation. It was such a positive expression of my concerns and still is. And the other thing is it's infinite. There's no end to this. It's just on and on and on. I thought, oh, maybe it's not going to be relevant in 10 years. Well, as it turns out, 10 years later, it's more relevant than it was 10 years ago. So there you go. And I also quote Andy Warhol as a photographer myself. This is a photograph of our time. The time that I took to interview 100 women is a snapshot of an incredible moment in time, and COVID was certainly a part of that. We couldn't have made that up. And so when COVID came to happen, I just said, well, do what you can. And I Zoom interviewed the remaining 40 women. I was at number 60
Wow.
when COVID hit, and I just kept going. I just kept going. And then I would try to go back or try to meet with these people so that I could, because it was great to actually see the pieces and handle them and feel the weight and understand how people, just like I was, a little girl, 3 years old, on a rainy day in New England in the cedar chest, I'd be looking at these pieces thinking, oh, these are beautiful. And being a jeweler myself, I could really relate to how these pieces were made and what was being done to manufacture them. There isn't a woman here that doesn't belong. There isn't a woman here that I would have wished could have been somebody else or didn't want to include. And if there were people in here that didn't want to be included, I realized that wasn't their space. I just let it fly. I just made it so that everybody had a space. And everybody that's in this book is absolutely remarkable in their work, in their attitude, in their proficiency.
Is there anything that I have not asked you in this interview that you would like to include?
I just think that it isn't that you haven't asked me. I think, these questions have been marvelous and have really covered a lot of ground. But I just think that the one thing that I see is hard to talk about is the amount of difficulty that every single one of us has had to stay in business, to create a business, to make a business. And I didn't ask fluff questions. I asked really tough questions. I really wanted to know what it was like. And I was astounded at the authenticity, the genuine responses that I got. I just was presenting a completely different take. To this day, no one's done anything like it. Everybody wants to know how many carats the stone is, and I want to know, what were you like when you were a little girl?
I ask this to all of my guests.
Okay.
Who would you like to nominate for me to interview next?
I can't believe you would just say that. Because people ask me, how did you get to the next person? And I would say at the end of every interview, who would you like me to interview? I didn't always do it, but it was a way that I could get like a database and I would hear about the person. Now, I need one little caveat before I say this. Keep in mind, this is an exhibition and I'm curating an exhibition. So when I was making my selections, I didn't want everybody to look the same, like all the New York crowd or all the San Francisco crowd. So I had a little bit different of an agenda because I was looking for every type of style and cultural influence in the pieces. But I think you should interview Miriam Kamau, Mimo's Gems. She's got a story. She is one of the only site holders of a Savarite mine in Kenya. And she is absolutely unbelievable. And she comes to every AGTA. And I have so much respect for her. I think I would nominate her.
Awesome. Well, I will be in touch.
Okay, sounds good. I'll come up with a list for you.
Yeah.
I've got a list.
Linda,
She's not a bench jeweler, though, but she's a gems miner.
the whole thought process behind this podcast was I realized coming out the gate, I've interviewed quite a few jewelers specifically, or bench jewelers, but really it also encompasses just amazing industry professionals.
She's an amazing industry professional. One short little quip. So when I asked every single one of the designers, like, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And I heard everything from, I made $1 million worth of inventory and they held it in customs before the show, to, familial loss or, something of that nature. And Miriam says to me, well, we have rhinos. Because she's a site holder in Africa.
Right.
I thought, okay, that's a part of something I have not heard yet. On to the next one. So her set of situations was completely different, and I loved it.
I think that the way that we develop empathy as human beings, and I was actually talking to Michael Robinson about this yesterday, is to listen to other people's stories, to put yourself in their shoes.
Absolutely.
And what unique shoes to have to deal with rhinos on your property.
Well, it's like the dry season, then there's the rainy season. Then she says, and then we have floods. And I thought, wow, like nobody's talked to me about that at this time. This is fascinating material. Can we hear about the rhinos?
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. Thank you for nominating her.
You're welcome.
And this is wonderful.
Well, I thank you very much. You're a wonderful interviewer, and this is a fantastic idea, and I just love it. it, and I couldn't be more honored or thrilled to be a participant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're always welcome on.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much for listening. I will have another episode out next week. Linda, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Naja.
Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.
You too.